It's unbelievable. So if all the team previews you've done, you hinted at it at the top that there are some times you've dug into a team and been like, man, I got to adjust my rankings because I didn't realize this. Is there one or two teams that really shocked you for a particular player or team?
For a full team, I would lean no. Although the Packers, actually the Broncos. Now I'm going to name like four teams. Broncos. Yeah, the Broncos, I went into them pretty optimistic and came out not optimistic. And I actually lowered a bunch of guys after I did the Broncos because, again, going back to that theme of trying to bet on continuity in a year like this with no practice. And again, we started off the whole podcast talking about how much we thought that practice, is important. I mean, anyone who has played competitive team sports knows that practice is important, unless you're Allen Iverson. If you're Allen Iverson, you don't need to fucking practice, okay? But most people need to practice. And we have a quarterback on the Broncos who has started 5 career games. We have a new offensive coordinator. We have a new quarterbacks coach. We have a new number 2 and 3 receivers. We have a pretty remade offensive line. And we have a second-year tight end who, Noah Fant might be dope. I really could see he has a really high ceiling. He would be a guy that I would be trying to acquire in Dynasty while he's still reasonable. But we have a lot of youth, and I think that this is probably not the right year for the Broncos to come together and be successful. Although their defense is, they might be like better than expected in terms of like win-loss because their defense could be really good. And I like Vic Fangio as a head coach, but in terms of being like a truly, hitting their ceiling offensively, I think we're a year away from that. The Bears. So the Bears didn't change my mind, but going through and just looking at Allen Robinson's career and recent accomplishments in light of his just dreadful quarterback play throughout his career, both in college and the pros, because he caught almost all of his passes at Penn State from Matt McGloin and Christian Hackenberger, and he's caught almost all of his NFL passes from Mitchell Trubisky and Blake Bortles. And looking at what he's been able to do in spite of that, and how he caught 98 balls last year, which was 7th in the NFL, and was, he was 3rd in the NFL in targets. And the Bears, I think they're even worse in the pass catcher core, and Nick Foles might be the best quarterback of his career. Now, it gives me pause about Allen Robinson that there is not that established quarterback to receiver chemistry. Yeah. That does give me pause. And also that, hey, the Bears are dumb enough that they could start the season with Mitchell Trubisky, and then they just change in season to Nick Foles, and they change back to Trubisky. I mean, they're a really poorly run, from a decision-making standpoint, really poorly run organization. And that scares me a little bit about Allen Robinson. But at the end of the day, this dude caught 98 passes last year from Mitchell Trubisky, and he's in his prime. He's 27 years old. He's at peak wide receiver age. He's in a contract year. He's really freaking good. We know this. And his target competition is I think he might lead the NFL in catches. And the more that I dug into, the positives of his outlook, and not focusing on what most people focus on. Oh, his quarterback is either going to be Trubisky or Foles, and understanding that is true, but also understanding that there are so many other factors working in his favor. I actually moved Allen Robinson from wide receiver 14 to wide receiver 6. He became a guy that went from, if you're using our rankings to draft, you're probably not going to get him, to you're fucking getting him almost every draft now.
And you're the 3rd or 4th guy I've had on that keeps bringing up Allen Robinson. So he's one of the ones I've gone back and reevaluated. And I can't find really too many holes in these arguments. It's like, yeah, his quarterbacks might suck, but they've always sucked, and he keeps getting it done. So that's one of the guys I find myself going back on and still needing to reevaluate. I bumped him up from, similar to you, I think he's like 15 or so in my rankings, to like 11. And now hearing you have him at 6, I might have to go back in and look again, you know?
I mean, at the end of the day, the reason that I was okay moving him to 6 was because I just think that everyone from like 6, all the receivers from like 6 to 12 are like almost, they're all really good picks.
Yeah.
But I think 11, like your people are going to get him at 11, a decent amount. So I wanted to make sure that he was in a spot where our people are going to get him, because we want him this year. We want Allen Robinson on our team this year. And, at the end of the day, like, that's what people need, and that's what they want. That they want to be on our guys, and Allen Robinson is going to be our guy. He was our guy last year too. We had him as the number 1 player to target in both redraft and dynasty and just all forms of fantasy. Just put him on, try to get him as much as you can. And, he absolutely delivered, and we're doubling down.
What is up, you fantasy wolf? Thanks so much for tuning in. If you haven't already, share your thoughts in the comments, check out some more videos, and join the newest Wolfpack by subscribing below.